Welcome to the program, everyone. I'm Christiane Amanpour in London. This week, 82 years ago, Kristallnacht happened. It was the Nazis' warning shot across the bow of our human civilization that led to genocide against a whole identity, and in that tower of burning books, it led to an attack on fact, knowledge, history, and truth. After 4 years of a modern-day assault on those same values by Donald Trump, the Biden-Harris team pledges a return to norms.
You're going to bring it back.
Well, I thought so, but apparently Vish didn't get the memo.
Okay,
won't be the first time.
That's okay.
All right. So there's a reason I wanted to play that again.
I had to play her. I don't like playing her voice the first time. I had to play it twice. Right?
Yeah. There's a reason I wanted to play that again as well, because Jack, I mean, you're absolutely right about her getting the historical point wrong about Kristallnacht, but that's the way Christiane Amanpour rolls. Like she's constantly getting things incorrect, and to a humiliating level, in fact. But there's a wider point here about the law firms dropping, because it's not. By the way, it's not just Porter Wright. They lost another one in Maricopa County, I believe, as well. Snell and Wilmer as well dropped in Maricopa County, and there's a wider point here. How is this happening? And Jack, you touched on it in the last segment. It's the lists, right? But who is the convener of these lists? So right now, it's a group called, and I'm sure most people have heard of it already, the Lincoln Project, right? So these are the never-Trumpers, who, by the way, are already being cast aside by the Democrats, who think they've got their victory in the bag already. But the Lincoln Project is now doubling down and they're groveling to the Democrats, and they're doing it by assaulting ordinary people and these law firms, these lawyers. So what they do and what they've done is they've been doxing these lawyers and the law firms, putting out their phone numbers, putting up everything on Twitter, so they get a mass harassment campaign. Remember, a mass harassment campaign is against Twitter rules. It's in the terms of service, and Twitter is not taking these things down. The Lincoln Project are behaving like full-blown Nazis at the moment. And here's the problem on our side. Number one, we're always just trying to row back into the middle, pull things back into the middle, right? This whole thing that we're going through right now is to get back to a set of election norms that didn't even really work in the first instance, but we're just trying to pull it back to something that was, hey, okay, you know, we can deal with everything, and we can go through a lot of that. We got a new story I just put up on the Pulse as well about how this Pennsylvania election board works and who's elected to it and Joe Biden's connections with it. It hasn't really worked for a long time anyway, but people have tolerated it. But now you've got a full-blown assault on these people, and they're louder than us. The Lincoln Project is louder than us. They spend more money than us. They talk to more people than we do. Our side isn't making as many phone calls as their side is. You know, and I got to tell you, I had a cab driver last night from Russia, and I asked him, hey, what do you think of all the madness? And he said something to me that just really hit me. He said, you know, for me, this is normal. This is how every election is in Russia. He said there's no difference between what's going on here and what Vladimir Putin does, how Vladimir Putin wins elections with 99% victories. I had to get that off my chest.
Yeah, in addition to the actual doxing and targeting these law firms, Jones Day and Porter Wright, Lincoln Project announced a $500,000 advertising blitz against them as well.
Against the law firms?
That's correct.
Yeah, that's the pressure they're under.
How do you have a country where the president of the United States cannot have legal representation in a contested election?
I wonder about the Lincoln Project. They got the thing, like the Mendoza line, the Bannon line, the 4%. You're going to see it's bigger than in Arizona. If we lose Arizona, it's by our own hand we were smitten, right? Once an eagle said unto himself when it hit by an arrow, by my own hand, I am smitten. That's what's going to end up in Arizona if we end up losing it. I don't believe we're going to lose it once we get in there and start doing this precinct by precinct validation. I want to bring in Brian Kennedy now from the American Strategy Group. He's also chairman of the Committee on the Present Danger, China, one of the smartest guys that we've got in the entire Trump movement, both an intellectual and a man of action. Brian, you're now in Nevada, which makes me feel a lot better. But before I get to Nevada, I want to talk this piece that you and I talked about on American Mind about exactly about these ballots. Where are they, and why can they actually be certified And can they be validated? I'd like your comments and your thoughts about this, because one of the things that's starting to drive me nuts. I'm not so sure we're actually focused on the right thing. I don't think the issue here is fraud as always described, right? We can't go retail here. We have to go wholesale. Your thoughts?
No, I think that's exactly right, Stephen. Thank you. The whole thing about all these mail-in ballots, there were millions and millions of mail-in ballots, and we didn't have a system in place to verify the signatures adequately, to monitor any kind of abuse of that part of the system. And then when you actually scan the ballots, they're being scanned in machines that are relatively new to this process. They're made by a company called Smartmatic, as you've heard over the last several days. And the CEO of that company is a Venezuelan national and a leftist, and somebody who has not built these machines using Chinese components that themselves could be hacked into. We've not built a system that is at all secure. This is not voter fraud when we think of someone bringing in, 5 extra ballots here or there. This is industrial level ballot manipulation, the creation of, the number of ballots that can swing elections in these various states being run through machines that could just conceivably move votes from Trump to Biden. Now, if the average American hears any of this, they're going to think, how is this fair? And it's not. This is election fraud, not voter fraud. They've geared the whole system to steal it, whether it's Arizona, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Georgia. This thing is an absolute mess. Forget about the sanctity of one man, one vote. This is one party, millions of votes. And that's our real problem here. And so when we look for eyewitnesses or affidavits, of people seeing wrongdoing, they're missing the point. The whole system is rigged against President Trump. And we've got to get some legal judgment about how that cannot stand. It's not fair to all people who voted legitimately on both sides. And that's the real unfortunate part of this.
This is the equal protection argument people have been making from the beginning. Here's the thing. On the messaging and positioning of this and messaging tying into legal, have we, because one of the flies in the ointment, you've got a Republican administration in Georgia and you got a Republican administration in Arizona that somehow made these decisions. You've got these machines, and you've got to, you got to go off this wholesale. But so go ahead and answer there. The left is going to say, this is classic Trump. This is classic Trump movement. They go down one path, and they can't find enough traditional voter fraud. They've also got another problem. He's way behind in a lot of states, so they got to come up with hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands, not onesies, twosies. So now they're going to shift the goalpost. What do you say about that?
Well, it's not really shifting the goalpost. It's trying to understand the problem. Look, we have the kind of country where if you have one party determined to rig the system and the other party plays entirely by the rule book, which it looks here like the Republicans have, and the Democrats really want to load the system with ballots that they've harvested. They've got the ballots, they've filled them in, they faked the signatures, and they put them in the hundreds of thousands. You can easily sway one of these states, and there's no mechanism in place to sort that out. Now, when it comes to Georgia or Arizona, yes, you may have Republican governors, but the Republican governors, have Democrat secretaries of state, or even a Republican secretary of state who may not be a Trump person and may themselves not care much about the integrity of the system, as strange as that sounds. In Arizona, the Secretary of State called the president in 2017 a Nazi. That's the woman who's counting it in Arizona and who has built a system there for, Joe Biden to win. It's rigged for him to win. The ballots were accepted. And the same, as I could say, would be true of Nevada. And the only remedy we have is going to court and being able to demonstrate that this kind of ballot harvesting went on, that the machines that were actually doing the counting, they were not following the protocols from the company that even built them itself, right? The security of the machines, the protocols you need to guarantee that they can't be penetrated by cyber attackers. Those things weren't followed. They admit, the people who were working on this will openly say that not all the protocols were followed, but we're supposed to just accept the results of the election. And I think that's really what you're going to see in these court cases that are coming up. You're going to see really getting into, was this system as we've developed it, as it was developed really by, these companies, was it fair? Would it lead to a secure election? And right now, I think any reasonable person would say this was crazy. This was not even in the realm of being reasonable about this system.
We got two things I got to get to before we let you go. Is number one, you're the chairman of the and one of the founders of the Committee on the Present Danger of China. Lynn Wood, a very respected guy, is tweeting up a firestorm in Georgia where he represents the president going in, and it's like, Brian Kennedy, Frank Gaffney, and Steve Bannon wrote it, right? Or even Miles Guo, right? He's saying, hey, the CCP's up to their neck in this. You're going to see explosive evidence of the CCP having, Chinese counterpart have a direct hand in our election. Is that go back to the machines that you're talking about in the component pieces, or do you think Lynn Wood's got something else?
Well, look, as we know, the Chinese have an interest in the outcome of our election. They're not neutral in this. They would certainly want to see Joe Biden win. And so whether it's being able to hack into the machines that are actually doing the counting and being able to manipulate the actual tabulation of the votes, they're capable of doing that. They're a state actor. They have some of the finest hackers in the world. They can penetrate this system. That we know. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if the CCP wasn't part of that. And then when it comes to just simply, the COVID-19, the Chinese Communist Party virus, that itself created the very conditions where you'd have these millions of mail-in ballots. And so the combination of those two things, I think, yes, they are up to their neck in this. And until we're willing to sort that out in a transparent way, then we're just going to be sitting here. The left expects us to just go home, admit defeat, accept this, rigged election as if that's just, too bad. We'll get you next time. But I think any American, once the facts are known, are going to reject this wholesale.
Last question. You're now in Nevada. It's kind of gotten the least attention, although there was a criminal referral when Grinnell was out there. What's the latest? And, our engine room is beyond upset that there's not talk enough about criminality here in doing these aspects. When we read these affidavits in Nevada, are we going to see a lawsuit filed, and are there going to be more criminal referrals on this?
Yes, you'll see a lawsuit. And the lawsuit, I think, will really be going after more of what you're talking about, which is a wholesale evaluation of the system and whether these hundreds of thousands, millions of mail-in ballots can actually be authenticated. Criminal referrals, there are people who will say that there was criminality here, but the criminality again is not on one person, stuffing 10 ballots in a box somewhere, mailing them somewhere. This is about large scale, the entire party, an entire organization producing the number of ballots that would invalidate an election and actually sway the election. And it'll be just examining
Brian,
what kind of machines are we using.
We got to bounce. We're going to get your social media handles up in the next segment. Brian Kennedy from American Strategy Group. Thank you very much.